Controversy is brewing over President Obama's nominee for Labor Secretary, Thomas Perez. Just days before his Senate confirmation hearing, a new GOP report sharply criticizes Perez for what they call a questionable deal he brokered at the Justice Department. Joining me now is one of the report's authors, Congressman Issa. He's chairman of the House Oversight Committee. And I just want to catch up our audience as background. Tom Perez, he has been a champion of disparate impact theory, where racial discrimination is determined based on statistical outcome rather than on the specific case or the intent. And while he was the head of the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, Perez intervened to undermine 2 civil complaints against the city of St. Paul. That was in exchange for St. Paul dropping a Supreme Court case, this is the important part, that challenged this disparate impact directly. So I guess the question in that is, are you comfortable with someone as labor secretary who, in a way, doesn't trust the Supreme Court to decide what's legal?
Well, you got it exactly right. He clearly interfered with the body we trust, which is the Supreme Court, to make a final decision on this. He cost the taxpayers as much as $200 million in the process. And this interference, he did it secretly. He even did it so secretly that he gave less than candid answers to the IG, and ultimately failed to tell us the truth about private emails that he sent, circumventing, if you will, his official responsibility. He didn't turn these in, and we're very concerned that, in fact, this is a person who at least the Senate should look at more thoroughly. We believe the president should reconsider. But having said that, this is more than a year now, or about a year since we sent our first letter. And once again, the administration would like to have you believe that Congressman Goodlatte and Senator Grassley and I timed this. We didn't time this. We ran out of time with their stonewalling and sent subpoenas and published this report because we thought the people should know.
There are kind of 2 issues here. You know, there's the quid pro quo in the actual cases themselves, and then, as you said, there's the way that he responded to it and how forthcoming he was or was not. In terms of the quid pro quo, on November 28th, he asked a trial attorney in the Civil Rights Division if the quid pro quo was ethically permissible, and that attorney noted that there were no ethics rules addressing such a deal. How do you feel about that? I mean, does that cover him?
Well, you know, you can do that. You can get an ethics opinion, I guess, from somebody that works for you. But this is the problem. He had a responsibility to the American people, certainly to the whistleblower involved, and he failed to meet it. But more importantly, it's very clear, a man head of civil rights was unwilling to let the Supreme Court make a civil rights decision because he didn't like the potential outcome. That's the kind of interference that creates case law that is exactly the opposite of what it otherwise would be. And most importantly, he deceived the American people about it. He held this a secret. He used private email to circumvent the process. And all of that is that which is in the report for the American people, and more importantly, for the president to consider as to whether or not this person should go forward in this capacity. That's the kind of thing that we have to get to the bottom of. We publish the facts. Let the president decide if this is somebody he really trusts in one of the highest positions, and certainly the highest position for labor.
Congressman, go ahead and look at your phone if you need to. I mean, that could be the president. We don't want to stop you from getting that call if that's someone important. Let me ask you, though, this all came to light long before he was nominated. Do you think that, what does that say about the president's opinion of this post, or him? Does he not think that this is a big deal, and what is the likelihood, do you think, that he could be confirmed?
Well, ultimately, the president has a right to the appointees he wants if they're qualified, and that's a Senate decision to make. In my case, yes, I believe the president is aware of this person's interference. I believe the president wanted this interference. I believe the president wants civil rights as he describes it rather than as the Supreme Court decides it. That's where we're different. I trust the Supreme Court. I would never have done what President Obama did in his first State of the Union, which was essentially to chastise the Supreme Court justices beneath him because he didn't like their decision. I think that's where the American people are, is that we trust the Supreme Court. It's a long-term body that isn't subject to political whims. But that's a part of what we have to decide over in the Senate is, do you confirm somebody who doesn't trust the Supreme Court, who secretly interferes with its process and consideration, and then ultimately fails to tell the truth when asked?
Congressman Issa, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.